Over the last 2 weeks, I've been fielding a number of calls, texts, emails, asking the same question as it relates to the attendance of the event. Lots of people have been asking, how many people are coming? What's the size? But from a handful of people who have been in the community a long time, they've been asking a different question. They've been asking the question about our first member, the first dollar bill. My mom, Mama Stagen, the original origin story, and then Rick Sapio, the next part of the origin story, because we came into being as a company because of his support, February of 1999. And they know how involved and how much Rick cares about this community, and they also know that he's struggling with a significant challenge right now. And they've been asking, is he going to be at the event? Is he going to be there? And I said, I don't know. So here's quick context. I talked to Rick on a Monday in August 14th this year, and I said, what's going on? And he said, I'm not feeling well. I've been in and out of the urgent care. My skin's a little yellow. They think I might have hepatitis, but my eyes started turning yellow today. And so I don't know. That was on Monday. And then on Tuesday, which I didn't know was happening, his body started shutting down. His liver shut down, and he was rushed to the emergency room. In retrospect, probably within 12 hours of dying. In the emergency room, they performed, miracle of modern medicine, a procedure that put a stent in his body that allowed for his system to get back into a healthy state. And then 2 days later, with no sleep, in an uncomfortable bed, very concerned, very confused, no sleep, they came and gave him the news. You have pancreatic cancer. This is the cancer, the killer of all cancers. This is the cancer Steve Jobs died from. And not only do you have pancreatic cancer, you have the worst form of pancreatic cancer, which is inoperable. And so we are going to start chemo right now. And they came in to port chemo into his body. And he said, wait a second, I want to have more choice. And they said, you don't get a second opinion with this kind of cancer. You are going to die, and we are going to give you chemo so that you can extend your life by a couple of months. Death sentence. And he said, I can't think clearly. I don't want to make this decision. No, Rick, you don't understand. We have something called the standard of care. And when someone with this particular cancer is presented at the hospital, you get chemo. Now, what they didn't know is that Rick had lost 4 immediate family members on the other side of chemo. So he was very cautious about what that would mean to him. And once you start that, as many of you know, you often don't come back from that particular protocol. And so and for those that know Rick Sapio, he refused to be pushed around by the system, and he, against doctor's orders, checked himself out of the hospital, kind of a jailbreak, we should say, and went home and accepted responsibility for his situation, accepted the challenge of taking agency for his health and not subordinating his health to the medical community, and actually playing, as Andy Eby might have said, #offense. And that's where he's been. And not only is Rick here, some of the doctors said he wouldn't last 2 months. Not only is he here in the room, we have called an audible, and we've invited him to come up on stage and give us a little sense of his journey. So please stand in the crucible of our journey with Rick and put your hands together for Rick Sapio.
A healthy person has 1,000 wishes. but a sick person only has one. Robert Berger said that in 1968. So in April of 2023, 8 months ago, I announced the Gathering of Titan theme for 2024. It's an entrepreneurial event held at MIT that I've led several times. It's been going on for 20 years. And I announced in front of the room in April that the theme for 2024 is transcendence, going beyond your known limits. And I said something interesting to the guy to my left before I announced it in front of the room. I said, I hope God gives me something to overcome. And I remember asking God distinctly, give me something big. And holy shit, did he deliver. The word of the year for me, I always have a word of the year. The word this year was pronoia. And the opposite of pronoia is paranoia. Paranoia is the world is conspiring behind my back to take me out, to bring me down, to bring bad things to my life. Pronoia is the exact opposite. The world is conspiring behind my back to bring me blessings. And that's how I felt. August 18, 2023, I got the news. Thanks for the setup, Rand. That was actually beautiful. And the worst part about it was so many friends saying, you got to tell the kids. And I was up here 5 years ago, told the story of my family when my dad had announced to me and the 8 siblings when I was 11 years old that he had incurable cancer. So I had to take my wife, Melissa, and this is 2 years old. Our kids now are 9, 11, 13, and 16, and I sat around the kitchen table and told them the news, and my 13-year-old said, Dad, we're studying that one in school. That's the worst one. It was very hard. And then I made the mistake of Googling pancreatic cancer. And this is the first thing I found. It said that the 10 deadliest cancers and why there's no cure. And this was the granddaddy. But it was worse because it was not operable because it was surrounding some veins and arteries and attached to the liver, et cetera. So I emailed the Gathering of Titans group once I got the news, and I said to the whole group, I got my project. Here it is. What's yours? The last diagnosis from a radiologist 5 weeks ago was inoperable stage 4 cancer, which is ironic. I got home one night, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks ago. My wife said, wow, I just watched Randy Pouch's last lecture. And I'm like, why is that relevant? She goes, he has the same cancer diagnosis that you had. And he was the guy that was on Oprah and sold millions of copies of his book and died 6 months later. And I said, honey, I want to give my last lecture when I'm 107 years old. Not now. I'm not ready for that now. According to one of my doctors, and Rand Stagen was in the room with me, he was so gracious to bring me to the doctor early on, and he said to me and Rand, 15% of pancreatic cancer is misdiagnosed, and the patient actually has 0 cancer at all. Why is that relevant? Well, of those, only 7.5% survive 5 years. I'm like, well, why do only 7.5% survive 5 years? And he said they die for 2 reasons. 1, from the chemotherapy, or 2, from the cancer. I said, so they're dying from the chemotherapy even though they don't have cancer? Yes, was the answer. It's pretty scary. And the doctor, one of them said to me, 2 and 2, Rick, 2 and 2. I said, what the hell is 2 and 2? You have a 2% chance to live in 2 years. And I looked at him and I kind of smirked. Because if you know the story of my life, from the age of 13 when my dad died and my mother had a nervous breakdown and never recovered. And as I look around the room of 1%ers, I've never had a 2% chance at anything in my life. I felt like those were double the odds. That's awesome. I'll take those odds. Seriously. And then someone sent me this early on. Michael J. Fox has been living with a terminal illness for, 40 years. I don't know exactly, but he said, you must become an expert in your diagnosis. It is your responsibility to know more about your disease than the medical professionals treating you. And I am living proof that you can learn more about something. I'm talking to people at MD Anderson and NYU and UT Southwestern, and I'm asking them questions, and they're like, no one's ever asked that question. I'm like, How the hell do you not know the answer to that question? In the last 111 days, I learned a lot about loneliness. I decided to go to a cancer clinic in Phoenix for the last 12 weeks, and it's been really hard to be away from the family. I've been home on Sundays. Profound loneliness and despair. Generosity. And I just want to share two quick stories. About 4 weeks ago, I called a vendor of my company. You know, like, just think about it. I'm managing a company the last 30 years. I'm managing a publicly traded mutual fund company. I'm managing a family, young kids. It's so stressful on my wife. It's been tough. But 4 weeks ago, I went to call a vendor. I said, we have to pay you $170,000, which was a payment on a deal. And he says to me, friends don't take money from friends with pancreatic cancer. And I said, it's $170,000. He said, I don't care, keep it. And I just had never, ever in my life experienced that level of generosity. I said to him, my DNA has shifted. I will never be a stingy bastard again. And 4 weeks ago, I had to go for some experimental treatment in Vienna, Austria. And a friend just happened to pop over to the house. And I was in really bad shape. It's a miracle I'm up here, because up until yesterday, I was in bed the last 2 weeks with pancreatitis and chronic fatigue syndrome. And anyway, my friend stopped by the house and he said, you're going to Vienna, Austria? Who's going with you? And I said, I'm going by myself, because you can't even move. This guy has 4 kids, a business in several states, and he dropped everything. I can't even imagine that level of generosity. He was with me for 11 days. He paid for the plane tickets, the hotel. He paid for a chauffeur to drive us around, a shopper, an organic chef. And this isn't somebody who's loaded. He said, this is what friends do for friends. And I woke up in the middle of the night in pain with him staring at me. And I woke up to my clothes being folded and ready for the day. It was unbelievable. He even took me to the symphony in Vienna, which I left halfway through because of the pain. But my DNA will never be the same after that. I learned about scarcity. I called my best friend growing up. Hadn't talked to him. I mean, I talked to him 3 times a week for 40 years. I knew him in grade school. Told him the news, and he said, why'd you have to ruin my fucking day? And I haven't heard from him since. And it's just interesting, the human experience of the responses of people. Most people, ironically, it's crickets. And I've called several people, and I go, hey, Tom, how you doing? Are you going to come to my funeral? And he goes, absolutely, I'm coming to your funeral. I go, well, why don't you come visit me while I'm still on this side of the grass? It's bizarre. And it's really just, I'm just trying to pay it forward and have people wake up. The terror of not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, lots of prayer. My wife has been an absolute rock. You have to imagine what it must be like in her position. Chewing, you know, when you have pancreatic cancer, you have to chew your food really well. It takes me a half hour to eat. And just the whole act of just chewing food. My family's been amazing. I've learned how to receive on so many levels from so many different communities. Thank you. Gratitude for life, gratitude for friendship. I've just sit and watched the insanity of sports media and the cult of busyness. Just watching how insane we all are as I deal with this. There has been so many divinely orchestrated moments. I can't even tell you all of them. I'll tell you one on the next slide. I interviewed 5 widows of pancreatic cancer husbands, and all 5 said, do not do standard of care. Do not do standard of care. I'm listening. The illusion of control. We think we have control over our business, our family, our health. That's insanity. I learned a lot about courage, community, the Stagen community, Gathering of Titans community, my YPO community, the EO community. So many blessings. And it paid a lot to contribute to those communities over the last 30 years. Alternative medicine, my staff just stepped up. I took a complete leave of absence from the company. Gas, when you have this disease, you have a lot of gas. You're on the toilet a lot. I could play the Star Spangled Banner with my ass. I'm serious. It brings me to my knees. I mean, I haven't cried so much ever, probably even as a baby. And then forgiveness. I had to forgive my mom for being a horrible mom. And I've been told that that could lead to this. And then I learned about the terrain theory of medicine, which you're looking at a body right now that's 62 and a half pounds lighter than it was 4 months ago. The terrain theory of medicine is if you change the terrain, you change the disease. This is one particular machine. I went to this clinic in Phoenix, and this is called a Hockett machine. It has 4 different modalities to combat cancer, but it heats you up to 118 degrees inside. You can't scratch your face. It's a horrible thing. And they, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but they shut the lights off, leave you in the room, and I was crying like a baby. It was my second day at the clinic, and I'm like, God, please give me a sign. Am I doing the right thing being here for the next 3 months away from my family, away from my support network, and just prayed. I get back to my hotel room. I actually sent it to Rand. I get an email from this friend that I've known for 30 years, but I hadn't talked to him in 15. And the subject of the email said, treatment plan for Rick Sapio. It was a 12-page PDF in which he outlined his 1% chance survival of super advanced lung cancer. By the time he got to the doctors, he couldn't breathe. He had tumors throughout his lungs and his body. And he said, I scoured the globe. I looked everywhere. And I finally picked a place 5 years ago to go. And they cured me of my lung cancer. And it was the exact same place that I was sitting in while I was in that damn machine called a Hockett. How incredibly divinely orchestrated is that? Because I didn't even know where to go, honestly. I did 92 different protocols in the last 111 days, but one of the things that they do at this clinic in Phoenix is they make you lift weights. And, you know, in my entire life, I never once lifted 80 pounds. So I was doing my rows with the trainer there with 30 pounds, you know, one-arm rows. And he goes, you got a choice. Do you want to feed cancer cells or do you want to feed muscle cells? Grab the 80 pounds. Next thing you know, I'm doing 80-pound rows. It was half my body weight. It's insane. But they pushed us, and they had a lot of research going back to the 30s. I just want to read something to you, which is a partial list of some of the 111 protocols. By the way, I wrote something here that's pretty interesting. It says, came from a friend. He said when he heard the news, he said, Rick, the finest china comes from the hottest ovens. And this oven has been really, really hot. I did 10 hyperthermia treatments in which they heat your body to 108 degrees to kill cancer. They do that a lot in Germany. I did 10 of those. Countless conversations with stage 4 deathbed survivors. Tons of prayer and church services. EWAT, exercise with oxygen training, almost every single day. Mike Maddock got to experience it yesterday when I was really sick. I didn't miss a day. Heavy weight training, countless infusions of all types from vitamin C, which is nature's chemotherapy, to alpha lipoic acid. I did water fasting, ketogenic diet, 2 exorcisms. One was really bizarre. I did one anointing of the sick by Bishop Strickland. He came to me live right after he got fired by the Pope. Does anybody know that story? It made national news. Went to confession a lot, red light therapy, walking barefoot in nature, vitamins and medicines of all type, 1 witch doctor and 1 shaman. I was open to anything. My wife has been a rock, as I said. She's got a prayer group. I saw all the big doctors at all the major places. Ionic foot bath, special therapy in Vienna, which I mentioned, grounding mats each night, which I slept on, a frequency machine, that I slept with, a Tesla multi-wave oscillator machine each day, acupuncture, herbs, toxic cleanses, and a secret weapon, Jennifer Hoodie, who did a special healing session for me every week since day 1. So that's some of the stuff that I did. What can be accomplished in 90 days? That's me, July 2023, in Italy with Barrett Ursic. I don't know if he's in the room, but he's a graduate. It almost looks photoshopped. This is my 60th birthday, 90 days later, down 54 pounds. I've never been in that kind of shape in my life, and I'm actually 8 pounds lighter than that on stage right now. Standard of care. Standard of care does not have an answer to pancreatic cancer. And if there's anybody in the room that can show me that, I'd love to see it. So I have decided to challenge the standard of care model, and I'm using my life. We already know their statistics, but some doctors told me I wouldn't even be here. And I feel actually in this moment as I talk to you, pretty phenomenal. I will admit I took a couple of painkillers, so. So many people said, we'll do anything for you, how can we help? And how you can help is, well, I'll say that in a moment. I want you to experience, just for a minute, what it must be like. My wife and I are drowning and gulping for air. We simply don't have an answer to that. We really don't. The best way I can describe it is, I'm in the ocean, there's a hurricane pelting us, I'm gulping for air, and there's a helicopter above going, hey, you need anything? And it sounds weird, but that's how it feels. So if you know anybody that's going through a situation like this, just go give them cash, take their kids to school, buy them groceries, buy them dinner, write a love letter to them, get on a plane and play Monopoly with them. Do something. But asking that question, it's like I feel it and I want to respond, but I don't know what to say. I'm paralyzed by that question. So I hope that came out right. And what's interesting, and most people that we know, and my wife and I have talked about this a lot, like, have we heard from that person? It's like crickets. So they just don't know what to do. And as I said, it's like the cult of busyness. So I know there's a lot of people that have been sick and have gone through situations like this, but I'm just trying to give you something from our experience. A therapist went to a hospital in New York. I just read this in a book about 2 weeks ago. I went to the stage 4 cancer ward in a children's hospital. There was 48 patients there. And he said, I want you to draw a picture of your cancer. And 46 out of 48 drew a picture of a monster. And 2 drew a picture that was something like this: my cancer is my friend. My cancer is my friend. And ironically, the only 2 that survived in the cancer ward of 48 were the 2 that wrote, cancer is my friend. And I'm here to tell you, in all honesty, without any hesitation, that my cancer is my friend, and it's here to teach me a lesson. And I ask God every day, if you want me, take me. And if you don't want me, please tell me what you want me to do with my life, because I'm here and I am ready. A healthy person has 1,000 wishes. A sick person has only one. I want to read something that I wrote, which is not part of the script, but I would forget it. Put your cell phones down, cancel your Netflix account and your social media, stop reading the news, refocus on sports again next year because it'll be the same shit. Throw a bowling ball through your TV sets. None of that matters. There are millions of hours wasted there. Instead, reach out to a friend or distant family member who may have only one wish. Buy them groceries, write them a note, cook them dinner, give them a hug, play Monopoly with them, jump on a plane and sit eyeball to eyeball with them. Leave the cell phone in the car and connect. That is what I suggest you do. Thank you very much. Should we give the update or no?
Yeah.
So Rand wanted me to give you a quick status update. So 2 weeks ago, I had to get surgery to replace the stent. And unfortunately, while they did that, it caused pancreatitis, which is, look that up, that is the worst. It was worse 2 weeks. But while they were in there, they did a sonogram of the tumor, and they also took 6 large biopsies. And all 6 biopsies came back negative for cancer. The doctor said I'd be cautiously optimistic, I might have missed it. And then separately, the tumor was 40% smaller, and he said, I've never seen that before. So.